the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We'll start the meeting off with a moment of silent reflection, followed by an invocation by Pastor Gregory Simstrot with Vero Bible Fellowship, followed by the pledge by Commissioner Peter O'Brien. Pastor Gregory.
Well, Father, we come before you this morning, and I'm so thankful for this commission that is looking out for this community. I'm reminded of Scripture, and I pray that this would reach their ears and, more importantly, their hearts this morning, that your word says, "Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He frustrates the plans of the peoples. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he has chosen as his heritage. The Lord looks down from heaven, and he sees all the children of man. From where he sits enthroned, he looks out on all the inhabitants of the earth, he who fashions the hearts of them all and observes all their deeds. The king, he is not saved by his great army. A warrior is not delivered by his great strength. The war horse is a false hope for salvation, and by its great might it cannot rescue. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him, on those who hope in his steadfast love, that he may deliver their souls from death." So, Father, we thank you for your word, and we thank you for this leadership team of our county, and pray that today, as they execute their right to speak, may they also keep in mind the importance of listening. And as they carry out their actions over this county, may they also carry a humble heart in making that decision. And most of all, as they sit in a position of authority, may they be able to remember it is about people and loving this community. That is the most important thing. And I pray that you would bless each and every member of this commission today, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on our agenda is any additions or deletions.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are no proclamations or presentations, so we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
move approval for item 6A, 6B, and 6C, which is the budget workshop meeting of July 17, 2019, the preliminary budget hearing of September 11, 2019, and the minutes from the final budget hearing of September 18, 2019, as well as the regular meeting minutes of August 11th, 2019, August 13th, excuse me.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer and a second by Commissioner O'Brien to move all of the minutes attached. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is informational items. Does anybody Anybody want to highlight anything on there? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item 8H, please.
Okay,
And item 8A.
A and H. Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? No?
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to 8A, 26th Street, Advance Acquisition of Right-of-Way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in full support of this great program we have of the willing seller right-of-way acquisition. One thing in reviewing the survey sketch that's attached that shows the proposed right-of-way line only about less than 3 feet from the existing structure. So when we look at, do we sell the remaining portion with the house or without the house, I think we need to just look at where the improvements will be relative to the side of that house, and if the public improvements such as sidewalks or curbs are at least not equal to what the residential setbacks would be, which I think would be 10 feet in that neighborhood, we might look at, would it make more sense to have that structure removed so that we don't end up, many of us have passed the one structure on 27th Avenue north of 4th Street on the west side of the road where the sidewalk is literally maybe 18 inches from the side of a building that wasn't completely taken. This is a number of decades ago probably, but if staff could just look at that and bring back the kind of the step 2 of this after the acquisition is how do we treat the remaining portion of the property. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll move this item for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Zork, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on to item 8H. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually Commissioner Adams' item for the Complete Count Census Committee, and she's presented 3 candidates to be appointed. And the only thing I thought, Commissioner Adams, is our committee has specific seats for the committee, and so I think we just need to determine for these 3 applicants which bucket they're filling on that list. I did distribute the list to all the commissioners this morning, so if you just want to kind of look it over and you know, assign them to the appropriate.
So these 3 applicants would be filling the Gifford area positions as well as the Wabasso area position.
Okay, and then do you want to assign them individually or just as a collective group?
Whatever your pleasure is.
Well, I'll ask Dylan, do we need to have them specific or just, we know that those buckets are now filled?
I mean, usually we have, you know, a note where it says 2 representatives from the Gifford area, and then the 2 people are listed, and then, you know, Oswald area person is listed, and Wabasso area. I mean, it might be just cleaner for us to know which ones they're going to, but I defer to the pleasure of the board.
I believe.
So, Mr. Brown and Ms. Price would be filling the Gifford area positions, and then Ms. Miller would be filling the Wabasso area position.
Awesome. And with that, I'll move approval of the item with the assignments as presented by Commissioner Adams.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the only thing I would add is if my fellow commissioners know of anybody to fill some of the other spots, please encourage anybody that might be interested to apply so we can have a full committee.
They need to fill, Madam Chair, they need to fill out the standard committee form,
It's on our website.
available online or in the office.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for that. Next item is public hearing for the county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvement program and the supporting data and analysis of such. Welcome, gentlemen.
you, Chair Adams, and good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Shute, Chief of Long Range Planning for Indian River County Community Development Department. And as stated, the item before you is the capital improvements element, the annual update to that. Now, the purpose of the comprehensive plan amendment before you is to recognize changes in existing and future public facility needs and changes in funding, and to comply with yearly capital improvement element update requirements of the state law and county comprehensive plan policy. With the capital improvements element, the adoption process is a little bit different than a standard comprehensive plan amendment adoption process. Normally, a standard adoption process for a comprehensive plan amendment involves 3 public hearings, and it gets strung out over 9+ months. But the state, at one point, now I'm gonna try to put my finger on a year, maybe 8-9 years ago, roughly, they made a decision that the capital improvement element could go through an expedited process, which only involves 1 public hearing. So that's the public hearing today before you. So no planning and zoning commission review is required, and no state agency review is required. So the CIE preparation itself, it's done over several months and involves all the county departments that have capital improvement needs. And, you know, we rely on all the departments. There's meetings with budget department, with county planning staff at times. It's overall managed by planning staff, but it's directed by the budget department, who has a big role in helping to prepare this and review the numbers. With respect to changes, the updated existing revenue information, updated revenue projections, they're always updated in the capital improvements element annual update. We updated Appendix A, Indian River County 5-year schedule of capital improvements. Now, some of these are, I'll make a note, are strike through and underline, but we traditionally do not do strike through and underline in Appendix A and some of the other tables because it gets a little confusing. But through the text, we did, all throughout the text, the state requires strike through and underline, so we did that. So with the Appendix A revision, as well as the revenue information and revenue projections, so we went throughout the entire element and did the tables, figures, and corresponding text. With respect to forecasted revenue, we increased the forecast revenue, and this is largely due to the continually improving market conditions. And program revenue sources fund all 5 years of the capital improvements program. With respect to Appendix A, the 5-year CIP schedule, this is for the fiscal year 2019-20 through fiscal year 23-24. And the total 5-year CIP expenditures increased by 16.19% from the previous currently adopted 5-year CIP, which has $335,813,326. So the proposed new one has $390,169,564. As always, projected revenues will match projected expenses. That's the case with this CIE update. Level of service standards are maintained in this update. And as always is the case, been doing this a lot of years, the transportation is nearly 50% of the total expenditures, so that's the biggest chunk for the capital improvements program. It's at 47.24% this year. Now, looking at the various elements, so we, in the CIP, the Appendix A, and as well as the overall CIE, the entire element, it's all broken down into different elements. We have the coastal management element, we have the conservation aquifer recharge, emergency services, facilities management, law enforcement, corrections, recreation and open space, sanitary sewer and potable water, solid waste, stormwater management, transportation. And as you can see on the slide before you, the totals are at the far right side for the 5 years. And I think I have some things that pop up here. Well, they did on the other one. Okay. Things I'll note quickly is sanitary sewer and potable water. That's the second most expensive at $81,630,549. That's the total for 5 year. Transportation's at $184,302,985. Again, the overall 5-year CIP is at $390 million. There's the boxes I was looking for. With respect to the 1 cent local option sales tax, on August 16th, 2016, the Board of County Commissioners directed staff to commit to spending 20% of the proceeds of the first 5 years of the extended 1 cent local option sales tax on lagoon-related benefiting projects, if the tax was renewed by voters in November of 2016. So that ultimately did happen on November 8th, 2016. The optional sales tax was extended from December 31st, 2019 through December 31st to 2034. So per the board's direction, the CIE needs to meet 20% lagoon expenditure for the fiscal years 2019-20. And really the whole 5 years, this is the first time we're at the whole 5-year point, through 2023, 2024. So if we look at some of the projects and the categories, and just look at the totals overall for the stormwater 5-year CIP, it's proposed to have just over 13 million out of the projected 96.28 million in a optional sales tax that's adjusted for the start of the sales tax extension. And conservation CIP, 1.6 million out of the 96.28 million. Recreation Parks CIP is proposed 800,000, and water and sewer CIP is proposed at 3.6 million. And just to highlight a few of the projects for these categories, you have stormwater projects, you have the PC North Moorhen Marsh North Relief Canal Treatment System. That's a big chunk at 8 million, a little bit over 8 million. Sub-regional managed aquatic plant systems at 600,000. Osprey Acres Flowway and Nature Preserve, 360,000. East Gifford stormwater improvements, including outfall to 41st Street Pond, 50,000. And total maximum daily load utility effluent storage, you have a land purchase at 1.8 million and construction at 2.1 million roughly. Conservation projects, you have the Hallstrom Farmstead water, sewer, and restrooms at 200,000. You have some wetlands improvements related to Jones Pier, $800,000. You have Indian River Lagoon Greenway wetland restoration, water quality improvements at $300,000. You have the Captain Forrester Hammock wetland restoration at $300,000. So you're seeing there's wetlands improvements and there's some sewer issues that are being addressed as well in these projects. Looking at other lagoon benefiting projects, so overall there's numerous projects with secondary lagoon benefits. So the main area for this is road improvement projects that retain and treat stormwater that currently discharge into canals and indirectly into the lagoon. Looking at the projected getting away from the lagoon issue itself. Go ahead.
For a minute. So are you saying that, for instance, that the restroom at the Hallstrom project is that they're using the 1 cent local option tax to pay for that?
I'd have to defer to the specifics on that project, but yes. If I look at the Appendix A, the Hallstrom Farmstead water, sewer, restrooms.
Yeah, okay, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, there's this and a few other things, which, when we were talking about the 1 cent optional sales tax and being used for TMDL remediation projects, this was not the type of thing that I think that the public could have expected. I think that some of these things, like the Hallstrom sewer restrooms, were more already in the pipeline, planned years ago, and they were just using these funds to pay for it, which, again, I don't think was the intention. The same thing, similarly, for a bigger project like the West Regional Wetlands expansion. That was something that's being driven by permitting needs of DEP. So I don't think we need to have it today, but I think that I'd like to have a real conversation with Mr. Brown about this and maybe come back in the future, because, you know, for me, we're not going to end up, if we keep on using a lot of the 1 cent optional sales tax funds for projects which had already been basically in the pipeline, that we're not going to be doing what I expected, and that was some additional TMDL remediation projects. So clearly, that's going to have to be a more policy discussion for the board and the county administrator later on, but I just want to fire the first shot over the bow. I mean, I'm gonna want a copy of your, I just didn't put it together this way when I was preparing for this. So I wanna see it, but I think that we need to have this conversation. Because at the end of the day, I think we need to be doing a little bit more for TMDL projects and not just shifting the funding categories, so.
Yeah, I'll be happy to have that discussion with you. We do have a document that breaks down specifically the 20% that the budget office has done. We'll send that to you, and we'll sit down and talk about it. Understand what you're saying on the sewer project for Hallstrom. I'd characterize the West Regional Wetland thing as a new project, though, and something that
And they're all gonna be different. That one's just a matter of what the driver of the new project is, which I understand that some of these will have discussion on the margins. It's just the one that really drove me was the restroom project. So that was the step too far.
And, well, Commissioner, sorry, just to make you feel a little better, according to this, the restrooms and such from Hallstrom are coming from the Land Acquisition Bond Fund proceeds and the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, and a tree fund grant. So no
That's
sales
good.
tax.
Okay, good. I just saw it up there as sales tax, so.
Okay.
But still, a worthwhile conversation, I think.
Well, yeah, we can have staff send that information out, and then if we need to have a follow-up policy discussion, we can certainly do that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right, it doesn't adequately point out, I guess, how the project's broken down, because this would be just a portion of the project. That's a good point there, but, right, Appendix A has a more detailed one. Yep. Okay, so going back to the projected transportation revenue, so this year we did a little variation on the table here. You'll see two gray shaded rows, so we have a subtotal for county-funded projects, and then we have a total revenue that we broke out the developer-funded construction, FDOT-funded construction, you can see at the slide here, but, various revenue sources fund the transportation improvement projects, gas tax, traffic impact fees, optional sales tax, street lighting MSBU, and Bear Lake Estates assessments. You can see over the 5 years, it's $134,576,743. And if you look at the FDOT funded, the second to last row, we have almost $42 million that's coming in from FDOT for projects, including County Road 512, and then developer-funded construction at $7.75 million, with an overall cost of $184 million.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question of staff? You'd mentioned part of the FDOT funding was the 512. That would only be a portion, because their total cost for that project is 90-something million, I believe, or maybe even greater than that. So that must be in years further out than 5 for the remainder of their commitment to that project.
yes, and I think it's 510, starting from 512.
Right.
And that project is not fully funded in the DOT's 5-year work program. It's a multi-phase project to get 510 done all the way.
Right, okay, thank you.
Right. And I'm looking at the spreadsheet, but I see a good, almost 18 million FDO funding, County Road 510, County Road 512 to US Highway 1, 4 lanes.
Okay.
So usually with this slideshow presentation too, we'll also highlight some of the transportation projects for you. This slide shows transportation projects completed in fiscal year 18-19 or under construction. So we have 58th Avenue reclamation and resurfacing from 26th Street to 49th Street, adding bike lanes. We have Indian River Boulevard sidewalks, 37th Street to 53rd Street. We have the 45th Street beautification, Phase 2, the culverting canal, installing sidewalk, and that's a Gifford Neighborhood Plan Action, item 7.3 and 9.3, which is up for discussion later on today. 43rd Avenue, 49th Street to 53rd Street, new road, developer funded. You have the County Road 512 resurfacing, signalization of Indian River Boulevard and Grand Harbor Drive, 49th Street resurfacing from 31st Avenue, 58th Avenue, Old Dixie, and Highlands intersection improvements. So kind of a long list there. And you have, the next slide shows transportation projects already bid or soon to be bid with construction costs listed in the first year. So we have some 43rd Avenue projects So 43rd Avenue State Road 60, 18th Street to 26th Street, 4 lanes. You have the 43rd Avenue sidewalks, Airport Drive West to 41st Street. And that's also a Gifford Neighborhood Plan Action, item 7.2. 58th Avenue resurfacing, which is 57th Street to County Road 510. Includes the left turn lanes at 69th Street and adding bike lanes. We have the County Road 512 at Roseland Road, southbound to westbound right turn lane, and we have the signalization of Indian River Boulevard at 8th Street.
Bill?
Yep.
Madam Chair, just a quick question for Rich on 43rd Avenue and State Road 60. The timing on that, is that out for bid, or where are we on that particular project?
Rich Berger, Public Works Director. The project's been bid. We now have, it's because we're under a cone of silence right now, the project is with DOT for concurrence before we finalize and bring to the board for award. But it's been bid right now. If everything goes according to plan, we hope to get under construction late February.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So moving on, there's other major non-transportation projects, just to name a few. We have 2 new emergency services fire stations. We have North Sebastian Septic to Sewer Phase 2, Sebastian Highlands Septic to Sewer. We have the AMI meter conversion in the potable water element. We have design permitting construction of cell 3 of segment 3 for the landfill. New courtroom facilities, new roofs for various county buildings, including the ones at the Dodgertown facility. Corrections, medical housing, expansion of recreation yard facilities, and we have sheriff facility improvements and needs design.
If I may, Madam Chairman? On the last one, the sheriff facility improvements and needs design, there are 2 aspects of that. I don't know how you style them, but one's, I think, a pre-study, and the other is some work maybe on a new administration building for the sheriff. I'm just wondering if the timing is right for those. I mean, this is an election year, and quite frankly, we don't know who the new sheriff is going to be, and none of the people running for sheriff are actually going to be able to be paying much attention to what's going on this year. And so I'm just wondering if we moved each of the 2 items back 1 year in time, if that might not be better. That'll give whoever the new sheriff is some time to find out what's being done with the first minor study, and then have some time at least to assess what the needs of the sheriff's organization are before he commits to a larger study. Well, that's just,
Commissioner Sora, I had the very same discussion with Mr. Brown yesterday, and I concur with you. The only thing I would recommend we change is to move them back 2 years, because 1 year, 1 year from now, the new sheriff would have just been elected. So I would think it'd be more appropriate to go back 2 years for each of
I'm
them.
good with 2 years. I didn't want to put it off too long, but I think that's reasonable.
So I don't know if we need a formal motion on this, or just,
Do you want to wait till we get through the whole?
we can if we want to go through item by item, but okay.
Oh, and also, Madam Chair, if I might
Yes.
add, the study dollars that have been in the budget have been in the budget for some time, at least going back into last year's budget, if that's correct, Jason? That
We did fund the 200,000 for the space needs study,
the
which is
space needs only, right?
first step in 1819, and what this contemplated was just rolling that into the current year.
Right.
From a practical standpoint, as the discussion is, Sheriff Lohr has determined to let the next sheriff do that works, which makes sense. We could leave it in the current year, however, in all likelihood, nothing's going to happen because the new sheriff won't take office until next fiscal year, January 2021. So it would make sense to move that part 1 year anyway, and then at a minimum of 1 year, but possibly 2 based on what the board decides.
Great. When we actually get to writing that, there's certain, I don't want to say do's and don'ts, we want to have our Public Works Director put in some of the scope of work on that have been talked about over the years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So in summary, there's increased forecasted revenue, the projected timeframes are extended, and projects costs modified in the CIP. Level of service standards are maintained with this update. 20% of the extended 1 cent local option sales tax in years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are allocated to lagoon-related projects. The CIE is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the CIE is financially feasible. So with that, the recommendation is that the Board of County Commissioners approve the update to the 5-year capital improvements program for the period fiscal year 2019-20 through fiscal year 2023-24, and the supporting data analysis of the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan by adopting the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time?
I have one, it's more of a request because I don't think they'll be prepared to answer this today. But when we look at but we could be surprised with some of the answers. And looking at the numbers relating to whether it's Hallstrom or Lost Tree Island, some of those, that's an $11.2 million commitment over the 5 years. About $2.8 million of that is grants that we think would be able to secure for that. But a number I'm also looking for is when we purchased all these lands with the current bond issue, we were required to make a number of different type of improvements or accesses or trails or restrooms, et cetera. What else, how much more catch-up is there over and above the 11.2 that's not in this 5-year plan? And I'm happy to have, a number come back at a later date, but I don't think this gets us completely caught up. I think it's a significant commitment by the county to put $11.2 million towards this, but I don't think gets us to the end of the road yet. And just for some future planning and some other discussions I've been having in the community is what else do we have to catch up on outside of what's not covered in the 11.2? We really appreciate the grant opportunities and the sharing of purchasing these lands, and we just want to do our part to put in whatever types of facilities or accesses that we were supposed to do on our side of the ledger when we received the grant dollars.
Yeah, if I may just add, Roland Du Bois, Community Development Director. One of our cost share partners in the acquisitions, particularly the Florida Communities Trust, had specific improvements that were required as part of the acquisitions. This capital improvement elements that's been the focus particularly of this plan, and I believe most of the issues are covered as far as those commitments. It doesn't address ongoing maintenance issues, that's not part of it, but I think this is a pretty substantial advancement to meeting those commitments. But we can look into that some more to see if we're missing anything.
Okay. And was there any non-FCT money that we use that may not have had a hard requirement of what we needed to do, but a suggested item that we might need to do if they participated, somebody other than FCT?
Well, the other part of it is, I'll give you an example. The Oslo Riverfront Conservation Area was not bought through FCT. That was pre-FCT. But we're finding we're having a need to replace some of the structures because it's an older park. So we're running into certain costs that are just part of the long-term process. So again, some of those might pop up over the years also.
Okay.
Follow up on that, I mean, there were 3 or 4 other organizations that we did have some responsibilities for to it, but this goes incredibly towards filling all of that. I mean, back, I'm not sure exactly how long, either 6 or 7 years ago, in the 5-year capital plan, there was a total of $250,000. That's in the 5-year plan.
Right.
And to see the $11 million in it this year, because it's been slowly ramping up over that, basically, maybe it's a 6-year period, and to see $11 million, I think is tremendous, and I think it's absolutely the right thing, but it'll get us close. Also, Beth Paul's wisely not here, but about 2 or 3 years ago, she did a very good report on just what needed to be done by whom, and we could probably ask her to update that sometime in the next few months. I mean, I don't think we should dump it on her right away before Christmas, but, you know, if, as part of her work, maybe we can have the county administrator ask if that's something that, in the course of the next few months, that can be updated. But I
can
think
do that.
it'll probably show us how far we've come in the last 5-6 years.
That would be my guess as well. Other comments for staff at this point? No? All right, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, discussion, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I do want to bring up one thing. I had a discussion with Commissioner O'Brien yesterday, and he had a question about the Moorhen Marsh, or the PC North project. It says on there that that project is not fully funded. In fact, it is, so we need to just make that change to note that the PC, that the Moorhen Marsh project is fully funded, so that was just an error there. So we need to get that corrected.
In that case, Madam Chairman, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the 5-year plan with the one change of moving the sheriff's items back in time each 2 years.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, under discussion.
Okay.
By moving the actual spending of the dollars back 2 years, if the new sheriff is ready to move forward, we could start with the language of what the RFP process would be, but then it wouldn't be awarded and spent until the 2021 year. In other words, you wouldn't have to, you've got 5 or 6 months worth of work to get the RFP out to see who you would award it to, but you wouldn't be able to award it until you got into the 2021 period.
Is that your intention, Commissioner?
It's not to spend the dollars till then, but you have 5 or 6 months worth of work of language preparation for the RFP for the initial needs study scope, which could be conducted because there's no cost being spent for that. The preparation of the bid document to request
It would be spent in 21, 22, if it was moved back 2 years.
Okay, right, 20,
What the sheriff does, I'm not going to micromanage him.
right.
I mean, that just is just the year that the spending would be done.
The actual physical award and spending, but there could be some of the.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it's appropriate for us to try to micromanage his time. So whatever he does, he does.
Right.
I have no idea whether he was spending all his time on this or not.
Right.
You know,
Well, he wanted to.
Right.
But then again, historically, the first 6 months of that office is going to be rather intense.
Oh, sure.
Encumbering, and I believe that whoever the sheriff is, there will be focusing in on operations
Sure.
and the safety and security of our citizens as opposed to planning a new building and facility.
Fantastic. So we have a motion by Commissioner Solari to approve with the change of moving the sheriff's funding back 2 years, as well as Jason's request for Moorhead Marsh being fully funded, with a second by Commissioner O'Brien. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is a public notice item.
Thank you very much, Chair. We have a couple of public notice items to read out for the public. First off, there is a public notice of a public hearing, which will be scheduled for December 10th, 2019. This concerns the extension of the temporary moratorium regarding biosolids. This will be legislative in nature. Also on December 10th is a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance to amend Section 205.09 of the Code of Indian River County. This is pertaining to the GYAC lease amendment issue. And finally, there's a third hearing on our list, which is actually for December 17th. And this is a public hearing for consideration of an ordinance to amend County Code, Chapter 308, Indian River County Housing Assistance Program. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. Our next item is County Administrator Matters. A letter from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners thanking Governor DeSantis for his attention to high-speed passenger rail safety. Jason.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Brian Sullivan to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Sullivan, Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager. In response to fatal accidents along the Florida East Coast Rail Corridor, Governor DeSantis recently asked FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, to look into the issue of high-speed passenger rail safety. The governor's directive follows a letter from the Florida Transportation Commission to FDOT, which brought forward their concerns regarding rail safety from different citizen advocacy groups in the state. As you know, Senator Mayfield and Representative Soroy have filed legislation in the Florida legislature which would authorize FDOT and clarify some of their responsibilities and duties with respect to high-speed rail, and also set some certain safety standards. And upon your direction, Indian River County is supportive of that legislation. And this letter to Governor DeSantis would thank him for his attention and also emphasize the importance of promulgating, the agency being able to promulgate rules, and also the legislature setting some regulatory framework surrounding higher speed rail safety.
Fantastic. Commissioner,
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher.
For discussion,
Yes.
could we also ask that staff follow up and, however, this is the best way to do it, get the information from the Florida Transportation Commission that they get from FDOT? I'd just like to see that information, and I think it would help us to know what it is.
Yes, we can follow up on that. I'm anxious to see what, I think the request that you're talking about is that the the Florida Transportation Commission has asked for FDOT's response to the OPAGA study, which identified a gap in the regulations. So
That's it.
we'd be anxious to,
And they attached a letter from the Florida Transportation Commission.
so we'll follow up on that.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to community development. We have a consideration of the Gifford Neighborhood Plan Annual Report Card for 2019. Gentlemen?
Great. Thank you again. And for the record, I'm Bill Shute, Chief of Long-Range Planning for Indian River County Community Development Department. And the item before you today is an annual update on the progress of implementing the Gifford Neighborhood Plan that was adopted in 2014. But stepping back a little bit, the current version of the Gifford Neighborhood Plan was initiated back in May of 2013 when the Board of County Commissioners directed staff to update the then year 2002 Gifford Neighborhood Plan. In the plan update process, it involved various steps and involved the Progressive Civic League of Gifford and staff hosting 11 public meetings. Numerous county departments, staff, and non-BCC offices and agencies participated in the update. Gifford residents and interested parties also participated, and staff research, data collection, and analysis was all updated to rewrite the 2002 Gifford Plan. The BCC ultimately approved the Gifford Neighborhood Plan on July 15th, 2014. And here's just a screenshot of the cover. Now, the Gifford Neighborhood Plan contains 15 objectives and 82 actions. Each objective has specific action items, so it's structured with various action items under each of the 15 objectives. Each action item addresses who, what, and when, and each action must be implemented by its due date. So it's a plan that's intended to be implemented in responsible entities and parties and concluding due dates. Objective and action topics include the areas of communication, housing, economic development, streets, sidewalks, and parks, 45th Street beautification project. Now, the Gifford Neighborhood Plan related projects now are adopted in the county. Okay, that was just a note at the bottom, which you've already seen. It was referenced in the CIE presentation. Gifford Neighborhood Plan projects are referenced in the CIE. Now, the 2019 Gifford Neighborhood Plan Implementation Report Card, it actual implementation of the action items started before the official adoption date of July 15, 2014. And 33 actions had 2014 to 2019 due dates. 30 were completed. That's 91%. 3 are in progress, so that would equal 100% adding those 3. There's 42 ongoing actions, all completed. Now, this is a busy slide, but I want to cram a lot on here. There's 2 action items here that are, very similar issues. They're dealing with the sidewalks. The first one has a due date of 2018 for 45th Street, and it's talking about different sections along 45th Street doing sidewalks. The second item, action 7.4, is not due until 2024, but I put this in here because, again, it's all related. It's on 41st Street and 49th Street dealing with sidewalks. And as reported back in 2017 at the Progressive Civic League of Gifford meeting and to the board that same year, sidewalks in the vicinity of the railroad. So both of these action items deal with sidewalks that would have to cross the railroad tracks. So it was noted that at that time, it wasn't possible to proceed with the projects due to the all-aboard Florida Brightline, now Virgin Trains, proposed improvements that preclude sidewalk construction at that time. Now, currently, Public Works is continuing to pursue the 3 intersection improvements on 41st Street, 45th, and 49th Street to cross the tracks and go to Old Dixie and US Highway 1. And the county recently met with Virgin Trains regarding the road crossing and the design proposed by Virgin Trains, and the county provided plans to Virgin Trains engineering team, and they are currently evaluating those plans for incorporation into the Virgin Trains crossing plans.
Bill, just so I'm clear, the Virgin Trains thing, is that the death train we're talking about?
Yeah.
Just want to clarify.
We'll see that later on.
Dylan, am I allowed to say that?
It's always easier to ask for.
You'll feel safe after my matters today.
Film 11.
Okay, so actions in progress. So looking also at, one more time back at action 7.3, the 45th Street sidewalk between 43rd Avenue and 58th Avenue. It was also noted that it was awarded back in February 6, 2018, and it's currently underway, may be completed by 2021 date. Action 11.8, by 2018, the county's Public Works Department will coordinate with Indian River Farms Water Control District to identify any appropriate safety barriers along canals in Gifford that are warranted by accident data and that the district will allow, and report its findings to the Board of County Commissioners and Progressive Civic League of Gifford. The item is currently in progress, and the completion date is proposed to be changed to 2020 due to staff workload. Action 10.2, by 2019, the county will signalize and or improve the 58th Avenue, 45th Street, and 58th Avenue, 49th Street intersections if adequate right-of-way has been obtained. The Progressive Civic League of Gifford will assist the county during the right-of-way acquisition process. Okay, so with this one, the completion date is proposed to be changed to 2020, as the project will be completed by a developer in that year. And as far as coordination with the Progressive Civic League of Gifford, per action 1.5 of the plan, the draft report card was provided to the Progressive Civic League of Gifford. And they were also notified recently about the board meeting. I believe we have representatives here today. And so the recommendation is the Board of County Commissioners to review and accept the Gifford Neighborhood Plan 2019 implementation report card. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments?
No, ma'am.
No? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this item? Welcome.
Good morning. Joe Adelet, 4570 57th Avenue, and also the president of the Progressive Civic League. Bill Shute is correct. We were notified and given all the proper information, and everything is as he said. Everything worked out fine for 2019. We are happy. We are proud, and two things. I tell people all the time, one question, is Gifford better than it was? And the only answer they can tell me is yes. Things are better than what they were. And in the end, I want to say that some people tell me that when people are doing their jobs, it's not necessary for you to say thank you, but I'm not that type of person. Florida 5th Street beautification turned out great. The covering of the canal, outstanding, and we want to thank the commissioners as well as staff for all that they have done and all that they continue to do on the behalf of the Gifford community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Good morning, Freddie Woolfolk, 4590 57th Avenue. I can just say ditto to what Mr. Adelaide just spoke. We have a great formula with the county officials, with the county commission, with staff, and we established that some years ago. And I believe where there are relationships that are built, then we can get things done. No one is pointing fingers saying what you did and didn't do. We're saying what can we do together to make Indian River County, which includes Gifford, better. So as our president said, we really appreciate the establishment of the Gifford Executive Group, which is giving information on a constant basis about what's happening in our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and let's continue to do the great work. And that includes your staff as well as you, the county commission, and our county administrator. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioners, this is an action item.
Madam Chair, go ahead and make a motion to accept the Gifford Neighborhood Plan 2019 Implementation Report Card.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Solari. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to utility services. We have an item on Sinagro dewatering and sewage sludge removal contract, renewal and price.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great job, Vinnie. We will move on.
All night.
We'll move on to commissioners' matters. Commissioner Solari, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The first item I have is to present a video that Citizens Against the Train has done about the train. And with the board's indulgence, I'd like to ask Scott to show the video, and then after that, I'd like to see if the commissioners would allow us to put this on the website and the county's TV station. Just as a human being, I believe it's like a death train to me. You have the opportunity to, you ought to do what you can to protect life. As an elected official, I've got an obligation to all my constituents, and certainly that would include the idea of protecting their lives from things like death trains that are proposed to come right through the county.
While other entities have stopped fighting against Virgin Trains, formerly known as Brightline and All Aboard Florida, Indian River County Commissioner Bob Solari remains vigilant with both a federal and a state lawsuit against the company.
We have been fighting a corporate entity which basically lied to us from the start. But a lot of people didn't believe when we said that deaths were going to occur, that they were unconcerned with safety. A lot of people bought into the corporate myth that they were going to do everything they could for safety. What do you do to have high-speed rail as a safe project? You have a dedicated high-speed rail line. That's the first thing. You don't put high-speed rail on the same tracks as slow commuter trains or freight trains, which are what they're going to do here. More importantly, you don't have at-grade crossings. There are 382 at-grade crossings that each one individually could cause tremendous problems. Over 24 people have died. And that is a sad statement, again, both for the failure of government and the failure of this corporate entity.
One of those deaths was at this crossing in Hollywood, a young man killed chasing after his dog.
People will say, well, it's trespassing. Well, it's because the tracks are in high-density urban areas, and people live on one side of the track and they want to get to the other side of the track. So we know we have that, so why aren't we taking into account safety measures to protect people? We do it when we build highways. You know, you see the walls on major highways.
Senator Mayfield's reattempted high-speed rail safety legislation in 2020 addresses fencing, improved at-grade crossings, and more state oversight for trains running from 81 to 125 miles per hour. A companion bill was filed by State Representative Tyler Sorois, a train proponent who shares Mayfield's safety concerns.
And if we don't do something, then it's shame on us for not being proactive to protect our citizens.
In fact, a third-party rail study, the Opaga Report, found that Florida's passenger rail system incurs a higher rate of severe injuries and fatalities than the national average. The report found there is also a gap in federal and state regulations governing higher speed rail. Among the recommendations for the Florida Department of Transportation, setting minimum grade crossing design standards, setting requirements for fencing along railroad corridors, creating guidelines for sealed corridor treatment along railroad corridors.
And in that Opaga study, it showed multiple things that the train could have done. More importantly, it clearly demonstrated that the Florida Department of Transportation has a role to play in the safety of this project, but they've basically ignored it. And also, importantly for me, is it showed that there are a series of best management practices for high-speed rail which are possible to implement, but which Virgin Trains hasn't implemented. Most of us believe that the simple reason that the Trains has not implemented them is simply because they want to save money. So they value a few dollars over here a lot more than they value human life anywhere on the east coast of Florida.
31 people have died. So my question is, how do you sleep at night?
At a recent informational meeting in Jupiter, Virgin Trains Vice President of Government Affairs Rusty Roberts insisted safety was its top priority, but the overwhelming majority of the audience wasn't buying it.
We are concerned citizens and we care about our community. I am totally against these high-speed trains running through our small communities, highly populated communities. It's dangerous.
Virgin Trains says the West Palm to Orlando route should be operational in mid-2022.
People are used to freight trains going 40 miles per hour. And note, down where these deaths are occurring, the trains aren't going more than 80 miles per hour. So still well under the 110 mile speeds that they're going to be going through in the Treasure Coast. So when it gets up to the Treasure Coast, things are going to be happening even a lot faster. The one thing we know about this train is that as it comes, and if it does come north, deaths are going to continue. And as long as those deaths continue, we will continue the fight against the train. So I'll note that Commissioner O'Brien was wondering if you could actually use just as a human being, I believe, going forward, and I think actually you're safe. I'll note that the number of deaths is now up to 40, and a recent Associated Press article notes that their death per rail mile traveled is the worst of the nation's 821 railroads. And I'll put it in a different perspective. I've driven roughly 800,000 miles on Florida streets since I came down here. And at the same rate of the death train, I would have killed 28 people. Commissioner Zork drives a lot more than me. I figure he probably would have been up to, at the same rate, killing 60 people. Now, if I'd killed 28 people with my auto and Commissioner Zork had killed 60, do you think either one of us would still have a driver's license? But now we finally get the governor, and I'm very appreciative of it, to finally get the governor to actually direct FDOT to start looking into this. FDOT refused to do it on its own for over 5 years. So we're finally, with 40 dead, getting some response, and I would like to thank the governor for that. So with that, I'll ask that the board is okay with putting this on the county website and TV station. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Most certainly, second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Solari, a second by Commissioner Flesher. Discussion?
Just clarification that neither myself or Commissioner Solari have actually never fatally injured anyone in our driving around Florida's highways.
Happy to get that out. Thank you.
That was a nice little public
Thank you for that
safety message.
clarification.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just, I noted and listened intentfully on this video. It was well done, Commissioner Solari. The team did a fine job. I did note that there was some statements in there that you mentioned 24, and then one of the speakers at the Rusty Roberts meeting mentioned 31, and the actual number now is 40. Is there any way to congeal that to make
Well, I
it?
don't know if they, well, by the time we changed
if
it,
they
it'd be 42. I mean, they're steadily going up at a rate of well over almost 2 a month now.
That's the only thought, but I think
Yeah,
it's
so
a great message, a due message, and just thank you.
Fantastic.
And thanks the Citizens Against the Train for
Yes.
doing this.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, the only thing I would ask is that, because I think we want to, like Senator Mayfield's bill would reply to any train, high-speed rail. So the less we can say it's citizens against the train, so that to me kind of conveys that we're picking on one train. And I just want to make sure our message is we want the safety concerns to apply to any high-speed rail to, tie in closely with Senator Mayfield's bill. So that's the only thing when we put it up there, just somehow we could coach it that this would apply to any high-speed rail going forward.
Citizens Against the Death Train?
But it is the Citizens Against the Deaf Train, but I think we want to be broader and just say it applies to any high-speed deaf train.
All death trains.
So we can just, we might be able to say at the end, if we can get our staff to put up just a sign that just says, Senator Mayfield's bill will cover all rail in all of Florida.
Just something like that, just so
Yeah.
we're,
That'd be
You guys
fine.
can
I think we want to tailor it to fit Senator Mayfield's bill
Certainly.
Fantastic.
in a little bit broader sense.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Senator Mayfield's bill and Representative Sroy's bill, they apply to any train. They're not singling out any one train.
That's all.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner Solari, you're up again.
Thank you.
You're making up for lost time, I see.
Being able to make motions is great. Glad I didn't lose the flow of it. So I want to talk about Gifford Gardens. Gifford Gardens is a 3.5-acre parcel at 47th Lane and 40th Avenue in Gifford. It's zoned residential multifamily, and it is now evidently owned by Leonard Green, who received the property via quitclaim deed from MAC WCP 3 Corp. In September of 2017. There were approximately 55 units in a 2-story apartment complex, which was condemned by the county and torn down by the county in 2012. In May of 2012, a lien of $85,997 was recorded against the property to recover the demolition costs. There are apparently a number of other liens against the property. The property has been minimally kept up over the past 7 years and is detrimental to the surrounding neighborhoods, or at least that's my opinion, driving by and seeing how it's kept up. At the November 13th meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee, the possibility of using Gifford Gardens as a template project was discussed. After some discussion, the committee recommended, there was no actual vote as a quorum was not present, that I go back to the board and see if the BCC first was interested in having the Affordable Housing Committee use the Gifford Gardens property as a template for an actual affordable housing project. Here, the committee efforts would culminate perhaps in an RFP for nonprofits or the private sector. Second, to direct the county attorney to begin the process to foreclose on the property. I would also like to note that this property has been discussed with the Progressive Civic League of Gifford, which voted to support going forward with the project, and has the support of the head of the NAACP of Indian River County. I'd be happy to answer any questions from my board members, or if they have any, or give more information.
Yes, Commissioner Stark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question to Dylan. So we have a demolition lien, we have base facility charge liens, we have code enforcement liens. At one time, wasn't one of those discounted or recalculated. They had someone, they came to us and asked the commission to, I guess, kind of waive the demolition lien about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And we said no, because those were hard dollars that we put out there. But I thought he had mentioned, the person that spoke on this group's behalf, that they did receive some discount from code enforcement or one of the other lien entities.
I don't know the exact amount of a discount. If there was one, I can say usually with a request for a waiver of interest and penalties associated with a building demolition lien, they have to pay off the building demolition lien to take advantage of that, and I'm not aware of the fact that that's happened, so I assume the building demolition lien is still in full. But I will certainly, as if the board directs the county attorney to move forward with this, we will certainly be researching each and every one of the liens and figuring out what our next step would be.
Okay, and then with that, I guess you'd come back and say, do we need to foreclose individually on each of those action lien items, or can they be bundled together?
We'll analyze the different liens and figure out what our best path moving forward.
But a great use for the property, for sure.
Other comments? No.
I think it'd be great to have the county attorney, dig a little bit deeper and then come back with the specifics of where we are. And then has anyone spoken to the current owner about any of this, or?
No.
And then usually when you get something through a quick claim deed, it's usually like $100 or some
There was
nominal.
actually, in the documentation, it's indicated, I believe, $5,900, which seemed to be a odd number, but again, the whole thing seems peculiar, but I don't have any dealings, indication except for the court record. But for someone to buy property with the type of liens that are on it.
There were tax certificate transactions, and that, I think, might contribute to the odd amount.
But why the guy would do it, it's odd. I mean, it seems to me that it's more the original party trying to get something off its books than it is something well-planned by the person who got the quitclaim deed.
And then while we're kind of on foreclosures and such, Dylan, I think Commissioner Adams had, when we did the last utility amnesty period, that Commissioner Adams wanted a hard 6-month and then proceed. Not today, but maybe sometime soon. Could you update us where we are on that?
Yeah, actually, I can tell you we did another reach out to the property owners after the date passed, and Susan, our office, has actually drafted up the list pendants, and we are working on those legal documents.
Okay, awesome, great, thank you.
So Commissioner Solari, if that was a motion to move forward with the Gifford Gardens as you presented it, I would be happy to second that.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by myself. Any other discussion?
Anybody from the?
Oh, anybody from the public, I'm
Can
so
we include
sorry.
in the motion the idea that the attorney go forth and
Yes.
examine the foreclosure?
And I think it's usually easier to foreclose on a utility lien than a code enforcement lien, but you'll figure all that out. Do you guys want to say anything? No?
Julianne Price, Chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I'm glad to hear the support for this project, and thank you for the leadership in moving it forward, and I believe that it will be a valuable contribution to the community and a model example that hopefully can be replicated to increase affordable housing in our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Freddie Woolfolk again, 4590 57th Avenue. We are so happy that someone is taking a serious look at affordable housing, because sometimes you hear the word affordable, and the people that you're trying to assist can't afford that which they call affordable, if that makes sense. But I commend Commissioner Solari for stepping forth and moving forward with this project, and I think it will be a living example of what can happen in the realm of affordable pricing for homes where people can reside in River County. There are some people who have left the county because they can't find affordable residence, either St. Lucie or Brevard County, but this would be a great opportunity to again, once again, to show Indian River County taking care of all of its citizens, which it always does. So thank you so much for considering that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we have oh, I'm so sorry.
Sharon Kohler, 545 Honeysuckle Lane. While looking into this, my concern is that the word affordable is not measurable. And I'm sure you're also aware that affordable housing is a big problem right now statewide. And I would hope that when this project comes to a vote before you're ready to do it, that affordable is measured. How are you going to, who is it going to be affordable for? And how are the rents going to be watched?
Yes.
I have to applaud Bill Shute. Bill Shute has done some amazing analysis on this, and there are different levels of what's affordable. Obviously, somebody making $50,000 a year is going to have a more affordable home than somebody making $25,000 a year. But his work clearly shows per income level what type of housing would be affordable. So there would be many gradations of what affordable housing is, from very low income affordable housing to things that are more called workforce housing today, which this county needs. So this county basically needs a series of housing at different levels. And it's from the cheapest we can build, which I don't know what that is, up to about $250,000. You know, and the more of those type of units under $250,000 that can be built, then the easier it will get for anybody to get a house. But I'll also note that the houses that we're initially talking about at Gifford Gardens, at least initially, aren't intended to be rented. They're intended to be sold to buyers. One of the things with conversations of people who live in Gifford is clear is that over the last years, owner-occupied residents have declined significantly, and with that, pride of home ownership. And my understanding from talking to people in Gifford is that they'd like to see more homeowners who can help build more traditional neighborhoods rather than more rental projects. So while we will need rental projects in the county in order to address the affordable housing, I think that having one which is owner-occupied in Gifford would be probably the best possible start for it. But again, I want to applaud Bill Shute, because the amount of work and analysis he's already done is pretty incredible.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to special districts and boards. We have emergency.
Move approval of August 13, 2019 minutes.
Second. Good job.
Motion by Commissioner O'Brien, second by Commissioner Solari. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of the fiscal year 2019-20 EMS County Awards Grant.
Move staff recommendation.
Second, but I would like to ask staff one quick question on this.
Sure, I have a motion by Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Flesher. Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah. So is this the kind of upside-down U-shaped device that you put over a victim or patient, and it's got a little piston that compresses and does the automatic CPR compression?
Yes, sir. It's a device that is attached to the patient at the time. It's secured, and then it's activated by the EMS personnel.
And that frees up the other personnel to do other things and be doing.
That frees up the personnel where they can start airway management.
Unfortunately, I saw one of these in action, and it's a pretty impressive machine there that does that. And then I guess it stops every couple of minutes and checks for a heart rate, and then it continues the.
Well, the new changes in CPR, we routinely don't stop anymore like we used to. Stop to check pulse and stuff. You just continue on, and then it's discretion of the attending medical personnel.
Right, and then they can also be loaded on the gurney and transported, this thing is still
Without
pumping away.
interruption, they can transfer
Awesome, yeah.
to the stretcher as well as to the hospital stretcher.
Great, okay, awesome, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And is there anything else for the good of the order?
Well, I must say, Madam Chair, well done on your first full commission meeting. We expect this bar to be met each time now going forward, so not to put any pressure on you, but
I shouldn't
well
have
done.
performed so well. All right, with that, we stand adjourned.